Well, it's being billed as a moderate alternative to this year's Republican National Convention. It's a virtual conference this week featuring speakers who are mainly Republicans or former Republicans who say they are disaffected with the party under President Trump. Now, the lineup includes ex-FBI Director James Comey, ex-CIA Director Michael Hayden, former RNC Chairman Michael Steele, and ex-South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford, all, as we said, Republicans or ex-Republicans. But one of the speakers is a lifelong Democrat, Reform Rabbi Joshua Stanton from New York. So why is he delivering an invocation at what's being called the Convention on Founding Principles? Well, he joins us now. Rabbi Stanton, a senior fellow at CLAL, the National Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership from New York City. Josh, nice to have you back. Why are you? You're a Democrat, I understand. So why appear, even though it's an alternative to the convention, it's still being billed as a Republican alternative?
This is an incredible moment for pluralism. And one of the things that we have been missing sorely in the United States is political pluralism. The idea that I don't have all the answers and that there is still common ground. And the right wing has gone so far right that it is difficult to have conversations about anything. And yet a group of bold patriots who self-identify as conservative decided to hold a separate convention to get back to basics, to talk about core principles. And I, as a Democrat, thought that it mattered that I show up to affirm that they are taking bold and brave risks for the common good and that there is higher purpose than party.
But, Josh, certainly there are issues where you wouldn't agree, other than the fact that they oppose President Trump, maybe some domestic issues I can imagine, certainly in the area of foreign policy, maybe even in the area of Middle East and Israel policy. Your positions would be quite different from them in, let's say, more normal times.
I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, and I remember as a kid, both of my parents working tirelessly to do what was right, even if it meant working across party lines. And sadly, it's been a couple of decades since that has been possible. But the political convention, the Convention on Founding Principles, is about getting back to the time that we can find shared purpose. It doesn't mean agreeing on everything. One of the core ideals of Jewish tradition is the machloket l'shem shamayim, the argument for the sake of heaven, the argument about principles, not personalities. And this convention is about getting back to principles so that we can learn to talk to each other once again. And at its core, that's pluralism. It's about saying that I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to work with other people to find better ones, not just for myself, but for the Jewish people, or in this case, for the United States of America.
Now, as we just mentioned, as U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will be addressing the normative Republican convention with an address from Jerusalem, part of a push, something we also heard from Nikki Haley, saying the Trump administration has been better for Israel than the Democrats, and therefore the Jewish community should support it. How do you respond to that?
Well, I certainly think that the act of engaging in not just diplomacy, but politics while engaged in diplomacy is at mixed purposes. I don't think it's helpful. And the idea that one party would be the party for Israel is another false dichotomy. It is part of the polarization that right-wing extremists are creating. It's bad for the United States. Ultimately, it's bad for Israel. And it's bad for the Jewish people because we are being triangulated by a right wing that has drifted so far right that it is out of touch with reality. So I'm offended by the action of the Secretary of State. I think it's inappropriate, and I think that our country can do better. And our country is about pluralism, not ideology, and that's something that we're missing right now.
All right. Well, I guess this alternative Republican convention is going to be available online for people to see and to hear your invocation there. Rabbi Joshua Stanton, thank you for joining us on The Rundown.